webinar title is Delivering Academic Success for Children with ADHD. We'll be discussing this in detail with Ms. Shivani Wadhwa, the role of teachers, parents, and educators in supporting children with ADHD. Shivani is a counseling psychologist and remedial therapist, but more about her a little later. Let me talk to you a little bit about ability. As most of you must already know, for us as an organization, all carers of children with special needs, you all are at the center of our universe. Every child wants to thrive, and every child should be given the opportunity to thrive. Our mission is to make things easier for all the caregivers. And when we say easier, we mean making it more accessible, making it more affordable, and most important of all, making it more effective for you all. One way we have been able to do that is through technology. And while we understand that technology could help a lot, we also do know that without the carers, without the caregivers, technology alone is insufficient. And therefore, we bring to you a host of other support systems such as community and resources. Because no one should have to do this alone, right? Ability brings to you community and other resources to enable the best chance of discovering your child's true potential, or for that matter, for discovering a child's true potential whom you're trying to help. One way we have been able to make the resources reach to you is via our YouTube channel, which has over hundreds of useful videos from the best experts around the world. I'm pretty sure watching these videos would benefit you a lot. So if you haven't yet subscribed to the channel, please follow the link in the chat box and subscribe to the YouTube channel so that you stay posted about the upcoming events also, and also you get to learn from the best in the world. You can stay updated about upcoming events of Ability by following our Facebook page. Thousands of people already do it. Join them and you will know about all the upcoming webinars, workshops, and any new tool that we are planning to introduce to help children with special needs, to help the caregivers of children with special needs in future. We have recently launched our Ability Webinars portal, which makes it easy for you to scroll through all the events that are scheduled for in the future, and also all the past events that have happened under the on-demand section. So you can visit app.ability.com/events and you can access this page, which has a list of upcoming webinars, upcoming workshops, and also the webinars and workshops that have happened in the past are available on demand for you to view. So what you need to do to be able to access these on-demand sessions and live sessions easily, you need to fill out this tiny little form with all these details: first name, last name, email, contact number, how do you describe yourself, and also create your password. This field is important because entering this field for the first time will create your Ability account. And once you have done that, once you have created your Ability account, for all the future events, what you'll need to do is simply log in using your username and password, and going forward, you can register for any of the events from Ability just by a click of a button. So that makes life easier and simple for you all, right? Do try it. If you haven't, do create an account on the Ability portal so that you can stay posted also about all the upcoming events and you can register quickly. So without further ado, let us come to our session for today by Ms. Shivani Wadhwa. She's a counseling psychologist and remedial therapist. Like I already mentioned, she has over 7 years of experience in helping children with ADHD, LD, and other special needs. She's a certified SOI practitioner and phonics master trainer. She's so filled with energy, to help children with special needs in their space and also their caregivers. Welcome, Shivani, and thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much. A very good evening to all of you present here. It's a pleasure to be here. And all of us have encountered children in our day to day life. They're all special and unique in their own ways. So, today we'll be taking you through the journey of an ADHD child. It's normal for children to lose focus, to be unable to control their impulses. But we, as a professional, parent, or a special educator, need to figure out, is it a challenging behavior for them that needs to be addressed? So, beginning off with today's session, we will be seeing what exactly does ADHD mean, what are the types of ADHD, what are the challenges that children with ADHD face, what is the link that ADHD has with the biological and the cognitive domain of the child, and as teachers, as parents, as professionals, how can we facilitate their academic success? Moving on, when we move on, we have to first understand what exactly is ADHD. The term ADHD stands for Attention Deficit Hyperactivity Disorder. This disorder makes it difficult for the person to pay attention as well as control impulsive behaviors. ADHD is not just a childhood disorder, it even goes up to adulthood. It's just that as children grow, they learn to manage or cope with the problem they are encountering. When we move on to the types of ADHD, there are three types of ADHD. The first type of ADHD is the inattentive type. The inattentive ADHD is when someone is having an attention deficit disorder. That means they get easily distractible and they are showing symptoms of inattention. But there is no hyperactivity or impulsive behaviors in type 1. When we move on to type 2, type 2 is the hyperactive or impulsive type of ADHD. This is when a person has symptoms of hyperactivity and impulsivity, but not inattention. It is one of the most rarest kind of ADHD. The third kind is the combined type of ADHD, where the person has symptoms of both inattention and hyperactivity and impulsivity. Based on the types, there are certain challenges that children with ADHD face. So, the first challenge or the most difficult thing that they face is to focus on. So, they have difficulty with inattention. That is, they are not able to concentrate on a particular task. They forget the instructions that are given to them and they shift their attention from one task to another without completing what was on hand. They're also very impulsive. They're always on the go. They are constantly restless. They keep fidgeting around with things around them. There's also emotional dysregulation, because of which they have difficulty in controlling and managing their emotions. ADHD children also sometimes have social skill deficit, because of which they cannot socially behave appropriately. They get easily aroused, because of which there are sleep difficulties seen in children with ADHD. Based on the challenges, these challenges pose a threat to their academic performance. So, what happens because of these challenges is that they lose focus. While studying something or while attempting questions, they jump from one thing to another. They have difficulty in recalling and remembering what was told to them or what they had to learn. They're very quick in answering without even reading the complete question. They're like, oh, I know it, I need to pen it down. Or even without even someone asking the entire question, they blurt out the answer. They have difficulty with planning and time management. So, what happens with ADHD children is that they're so much in a rush, they write a detailed answer for a two marker, or they miss out on writing elaborative for a detailed answer. Because of their inattention and they lose focus, they're sometimes daydreaming during the exam and they lose out on time. They also have difficulty in following instructions. Usually, since they can't control their impulses, they can be playful, they start disturbing the person next to them, they start talking to, so the entire thing or the atmosphere gets disturbed because of them in the examination hall sometimes. There's illegible writing seen. They might be writing beautifully, But the moment it is like they lose focus, they start scribbling as their right. They keep shouting answers. They cannot wait for their turn or control impulse. They get overexcited when they know something and they want to take part in it. So all of these factors, some way or the other, affect their academic performance, leading to affecting their grades. When we speak about ADHD, ADHD is a neurodevelopmental disorder. This disorder affects the brain development of an individual. And because of this, it has a biological impact, in turn, a cognitive impact on the child. So, what happens with the ADHD child is that there is a low level of dopamine. This low level of dopamine leaves the child to feel unmotivated, as well as the child loses focus quickly. There also are structural anomalies seen in the frontal lobe, which are connected to the executive functioning, like the planning and the reasoning. So, if you could see it on the screen, we have the control subject and the ADHD subject. There are brain differences in the two, how the blood flow is. So, because of the biological impact, there's also a cognitive impact. That is, the differences in the brain activity affect the individual's attention, affects their sitting tolerance, that is, they cannot sit still and complete the task on hand. There has been difficulty to follow instructions, and the self control goes amiss sometimes. There are a lot of myths that surround ADHD. When we speak about ADHD, people are actually unaware that it is a real medical condition. The myth is that they feel that it is not a real medical condition. But as a fact, ADHD is a real medical condition. It's a neurodevelopmental disorder that affects the brain and the brain development. There's also a myth that people believe that people with ADHD just need to try harder. But the reality is they try hard but are still not able to do it. They need a different kind of support to be able to reach to their maximum potential. The other myth people have is they can't ever focus. But if a child with ADHD is given something of their interest, they focus a lot and they are able to sustain attention if it is of their interest. Another myth is that only boys have ADHD. Yes, boys do have ADHD twice as more as girls, but ADHD also affects girls. It is believed sometimes that ADHD is a learning disability. ADHD and learning disability are two different disabilities that an individual encounters. Though ADHD can affect the reading writing skills because you're not paying attention, but it is not the learning disability. It is also believed that kids with ADHD will outgrow it. As stated earlier, ADHD is something that continues. It's just that the person or the child who has ADHD starts to manage or cope with the condition that he or she is having. Since ADHD is a behavioral challenge, ADHD is thought to be a result of bad parenting. But no, it is a medical condition that is because of the brain differences and needs to be managed in a different manner, where the role of therapists, the role of parents, the role of teachers, educators, professionals together help the child attain the maximum potential. Once we have understood what are the challenges that children with ADHD face or what are the myths around it, what is important to know is that a child with ADHD, they need support, they need love, they need encouragement and understanding from their family, caregivers, and teachers. When all of them work hand in hand, the child is better able to manage with what he or she is going through, and it becomes a smoother sail for them. Overall, what they need is they need structure, they need consistency in routines and schedules, they need a clear communication pattern. Since, as I told you, it's a behavioral challenge, their rewards and consequences for their behavior are to be given. We all might have come across children where we'll be like, okay, this child was like this, that child is like this, but ADHD needs a formal diagnosis before labeling any child. And when we are working with children, parents play a very, very important role. They can make significant differences in the life of a child. As parents, you want the best for your child, and it is important to seek professional evaluation to know what the condition underlying cause or why the child is behaving in such a way, and then the early intervention. That is, how are we going to help the child? If that starts early, the child is able to progress better. As parents, it is important to be involved. Learn all you can about ADHD, because how ADHD is affecting your child is going to be different from how it is affecting the other child. The recommendations given by the therapist play an important role, and they need to be adhered, and there has to be consistency in seeking the therapeutic sessions. As a parent, identify the difficulties your child is facing because of ADHD, because some kids need to slow down, they need to learn to control themselves, or some kids need to get better at paying attention or listening. So you figure out the need of your child, and based on that, we could work ahead to help the child better. The relationship with the child matters the most. Usually, children with ADHD are let down saying that, okay, you're not able to do this, your behavior is not in line or accordance with how it has to be. So their self esteem gets affected. So, as a parent, it is very important that we are there to protect their self esteem by being patient, understanding, and accepting of them. The acceptance of a child as a professional, as a parent, is extremely important to help the child better. Also, setting clear, consistent, and reasonable expectations from the child are helpful. As parents, we can also discipline them with purpose and warmth. Setting up an effective discipline system is important, where we are praising them as well as giving them consequences for their behaviors. We need to create a fixed routine and structure for the child, identify their strengths, build upon them, identify what needs to be worked on, and use the child's strength to develop their weaknesses. As children with ADHD find it very difficult to focus, the instructions that we give them need to be very, very simple so they can process it easily. If too many information or too much of information is given to them, or too many instructions, it gets very, very difficult for them to process it and get the result out. So if your child has an ADHD, what you could do is you could try by breaking the instruction into smaller steps, as well as giving only one or two instructions at a time to get what you want from the child. These children have a lot of energy in them. So physical activities will help them channelize energies into constructive manner. For example, when I was working with an ADHD child, the child had so much of energy that sitting and controlling for 5 minutes also was difficult. So when the teacher observed that, okay, the child is not able to control anymore, a round of the playground or in the evening after school classes of basketball, where yes, draining of energy is happening, is really, really helpful. As parents, be sure to praise the child for their efforts and not just the outcomes. Usually, what we do is like, okay, if the child has attained it or got a particular thing, we appreciate it, but we miss out on appreciating the effort. So, whenever you see a child putting in effort, be sure that you at least give a verbal praise to boost his or her confidence. As parents, it is important to work with the school, to work with the therapist, to stay updated about the child's progress, so that all three work to hand in hand and together to help the child get the most out of the support that is being provided. Any task that is given to an ADHD child at home, or any instruction, if they are chunked into subparts, it becomes very, very easier for the child to understand, process, and get the outcome. So once they are chunked into smaller parts, it helps in better retention and better remembering, because of which the task at hand also gets done easily instead of giving a larger chunk of task at hand. So this is how parents, you all can help your child to overcome the difficulty that he or she is facing. Coming to the role of school. School, that is a place where children again spend a lot of time. School strategy is where the ADHD child has academic instruction support, there are behavioral instructions in place, and a few classroom accommodations. When these three are regularly implemented, they can help the ADHD child to the most, as well as the entire classroom environment is benefited. And as a school, it is important to set up an effective system of communication where the teacher working with the parent is updating the parent about the information about the child as to how the progress has been or what difficulties have been there, to address them with the help of a therapist. In school, teachers play a very, very important role. As teachers, you must have seen that you have a whole lot of variety of children, all of them having their own strengths and weaknesses, which we need to cater to at the same time. So when we are working with ADHD children, as teachers, we could keep the expectations clear, simple, and when we have to give reminders to these children, they can be given calmly. To help them to focus better, sustain their attention, their seating arrangement is of utmost importance. The child with ADHD, once recognized, is to be seated near the teaching area and away from the doors and windows. So even if a person is passing by or a pencil drops or any other small distraction, the child gets or shifts his focus of attention, and it's very difficult for the ADHD child to come back to the teaching. So the seating arrangement plays a very, very important role. So away from doors and windows. Providing frequent feedback as a teacher to the child helps the child to develop better. So if a child has shown you a good behavior, which you have been expecting, or even if it's a small change in a positive direction, it is important to praise the child for that good behavior. Sometimes there are negative behaviors, but if that negative behavior is not disruptive, they could be ignored. Sitting tolerance is an issue for children with ADHD. They struggle to sit still for long periods of time, specifically when we have the classes going on at the school. So, giving them opportunities to get up or small breaks can be of help to these children. The physical break could be like erasing the board, distribution of books, or collecting books. A little getting up from their place and having a physical movement definitely helps these children to come back and regain their focus and to be able to have better sitting tolerance. Also, these children get overwhelmed very, very easily. So, giving short breaks is one thing. Second thing is anything that is given to them, like large assignments or they have a lot of writing work, they could be cut down into smaller things, and they could also be given extra time to complete their work or assignments. There's another system which teachers can implement. It is the buddy system, where we have seen that you pair a child with ADHD with a willing child who wants to help this child, so that it's beneficial for the ADHD child to stay on task and remain focused. So, this buddy of the child will help the child to stay on task, give constant reminders that, hello, you need to come back. This is what we are doing. We are on so and so page number. So, this buddy would be providing encouragement without the teacher being disrupted during the course of the class. When we as teachers would want to help these children to perform better academically, we can provide them with prompts and cues. We could, call the child's name when you see that your child is getting distracted, or when you see that your child is not focusing on what you're saying or is somewhere else daydreaming, you could call the child by the name and be like, see, we are on so and so. Politely, gently, reminders are to be given, and the attention of the child is to be brought back. During the exam, when we understand that these children are having difficulty to stay on task, we can help them to plan and manage their time, where a constant reminder of time is given to them that we have little time left, we need to hurry up, I know you know it, I want you to attempt. These constant positive feedback phrases will definitely help the child to stay on task. Again, the instructions that are given to these children need to be simple, clear, step by step. Again, even while writing exams or any task in the classroom, they need to be seated away from the doors, windows to avoid the distraction that is there around them. For the teacher, in case you are in the flow of a classroom or you cannot stop in between, a non-verbal cue could help the child come back to focus, where it could be, pointing at his or her paper, or you are tapping a pat on the shoulder that, hey, we need to come back here. So the daydreaming mode is shifted to the present mode of the child. As teachers, you could also put them in the lead. It could be used by the parents and professionals as well, where when we are giving a simple instruction to a child, we ask the child to retell it once. It will help the child to remember. For example, if I want the child to go get a green book and a blue color pencil, I ask the child, what are you supposed to do? What did I tell? Can you please let me know again? So the child says, okay, green book and the other color pencil. So that is how you understand that yes, the child has taken the instruction. This is just a small example, but it applies to whatever instruction that you're going to give to the child. You are asking the child to retell so that you understand that yes, the child has understood what has been told to him or her. So that way you and the child are on the same page. So there is going to be a better output from the child once the child has understood what is expected of him or her. Same way, when academics is being taught to the child, if the child is put in the lead that, okay, this concept has been explained, now I want you to tell me in your own words, what have you understood? At that point of time, the child is like, yes, he's able to process, give an output. So once the output is there, the child is able to better remember for further things. So this is how the role of teachers is. They can provide prompts, they could break down the assignments, give more time, avoid distractions. And that is how they work closely with the school system and the parents to help the ADHD child feel benefited in the classroom environment. Coming to the role of special education teachers. Special education teachers for the ADHD children play an important role because they are going to work with the child. When they are going to work with the child as therapists, they have to be in sync with the classroom teacher so that they are updated about how the child is on a day-to-day basis. Also, with the counselor, if any, is taking care of the child, and the family members, that is the immediate caregiver, the mother or the father, who is looking into all these things. So when the special education teacher gets a first-hand information about how the child is doing, how it is going along, the special education teacher exactly knows how and what needs to be worked upon. So it starts off with working one-on-one. Children with ADHD work well when they are in a one-on-one setting, but the problem arises when they are put into a group setting. That's a challenge for them. So as special educators, definitely we start off with a one-on-one therapeutic session. After that one-on-one therapeutic session, we move them into smaller groups, try building on their sitting tolerance, try building on their attention span, and then we next move into the classroom setting. It's a step-by-step process to avoid overwhelming that the child faces. And when we are working on their attention span, maybe one-on-one, they're able to sit for 5 minutes. Maybe in a group of 4 to 5, 3 minutes. When they are in the classroom, it could be 2 minutes. But with constant and consistent practice and activities in a therapeutic setting, that is building upon. Also, the special education teacher could give simple instructions. Cognitive ability activities are there where the child's attention span and sitting tolerance are being worked upon. And Physical breaks for movement and exercise, some brain gym exercises also help to help the child recharge, maintain focus, and come out of the excess energy that he or she is having. And ADHD children sometimes have the feelings of restlessness. So those restlessness can be warded off by a few breaks in between. And when we are working as a special educator for a child with ADHD, it is we give them some time to do what they want to do and then come back to what we want them to do. So that way they are warding off their energy as well as helping us to do what we want to do with them in an activity setting. For example, there's a strategy of I do, we do, you do together, where the child is made the center of focus. But if something is to be taught, you are doing it first as a therapist, you're doing it together, and the child is then doing it alone. So, as a special education teacher, our role has to be to build upon the sitting tolerance. You can use mazes. There are a lot of find the differences activities, these little strategies to build on their sitting tolerance and the attention span. Timeout activities also work to build this. ADHD children are children who face challenges. They cannot control their impulses, but when in a proper setting with clear stated instructions, they are able to function well. They need somebody who can understand it. As they grow, they realize that yes, I am not able to control my impulses, but that just happens even if I'm trying harder. So we need to give them the support they need. We need to work on them and be there to listen to them as to what they are going through. And to conclude, if these children can't learn the way we teach the way they learn. We are here to help them, support them, and bring out the best in all these children. Thank you. So, in continuation to this, we'll be also having another webinar on 30th of March. You will be posted about it, and it would be how do we assess ADHD, a standardized assessment tool, as well as the management strategies in detail. How, as a therapist, you can manage, how, as a parent, because diet also plays a very, very important role for children with ADHD. How, as teachers, you could engage in little tips and strategies to make it a fruitful experience for these ADHD children. Yes.
Sure. Thanks a lot, Shivani, for such an informative session. So, like Shivani was already mentioning, the next workshop from Shivani, where she would be offering a lot of practical tips and strategies, is scheduled for 30th March, and what she would be covering in detail, she just mentioned. So, if you would like to register for that workshop, please check the link in the chat box. Our team members are sharing the link. You can register for the workshop individually, or also you can take the ability membership subscription so that you can attend Shivani's workshop along with many others for free by paying a small subscription fee. So do check that out. The link is there in your chat box, and the options to take ability membership would also be presented to you once you click on the link. Okay, we have received a lot of questions, Shivani. So without further ado, let us move to the questions. And so the first one that we have is from Maria. Maria is asking us, although you did cover this topic in much detail during your presentation, still there are questions coming up. So I would like to put it in front of
Sure.
you. What is the strategy that one should follow for children with ADHD, and what should be the advice to the parents of children with ADHD so that they can cope with the lesson?
For parents, I have discussed it in detail, their consistency, their unconditional positive support, regard, and most importantly, the acceptance towards a child is very, very important. And when strategies, when we talk about, there are a whole lot of strategies. Some children develop with cognitive enhancement activities, some children develop with the occupational therapy, but each child has their own need. Even if they have an ADHD, the need of an ADHD child differs from one to another. So we need to figure out what is the need, what really needs to be built upon, and based on that, these strategies are formulated. That is, the IEP plan is created. Once the assessment is done, we figure out what are the key core areas, and through observation and interaction through parents, teachers, what exactly needs to be picked up and worked upon for the child.
Sure. Hope that answers your question, Maria Janet. The next one is again from Maria, but this time from Maria Goretti. So she seems to be a professional, and she has described a particular case where a new student is admitted in the life skills resource room. The student is diagnosed with autism and displaying symptoms of ADHD. The student doesn't complete a task and is usually all over the place. According to the mother who recently started the occupational therapy sessions, she sits with the therapist. To assess this particular student is a little difficult, and Maria and along with others are in the process of restructuring the classroom so as to just giving time for her to get used to it. She, as of now, just comes once a week. So, what would be your advice to Maria, which she, along with her other professionals and colleagues, could follow to help this
Yeah.
child better?
Okay. So first, for this child, a formal diagnosis has to be done. As you're saying that you're still in the process of knowing her, observing her. So a formal diagnosis to know what exactly is happening. Is it ADHD or there are other comorbid conditions? Based on that, we figure out how to help Maria. And if we say that, yes, classroom modifications could be a great way to help the child, but consistency in the help providers is important. Like you said that there's once a week happening. Initially it would be very difficult for the child to accustom to what changes you are making, but they should be done on a more regular basis is what I would say initially. Later you could reduce the time, but initially it could at least needs to be 3 days a week if there's so much of problem where the child is not able to control the impulses, where the child is not able to sit still, the child is not able to focus, any information from the surrounding would not be taken by the child. So what is important here is that we first build on sitting tolerance, prioritize the need of the child. There are a lot of things that need to be worked upon in a child. Very important when you're working with any kind of disability in a child, prioritize the need, whether it's LD or ADHD or any other, prioritize. So Maria might need the sitting tolerance. Sorry, not Maria, the case that has been presented that would be needing the sitting tolerance. So once the sitting tolerance has been built, it becomes easier. So you figure out what needs to be worked upon, and there has to be a little consistency in the sessions, a little more frequent, I would say, to help the child better.
Sure. So, Maria, if you could work out some strategies for developing the sitting tolerance, I think so that would help you and also the child. Okay, moving on to the next question. This is from Shubhashri. Shubhashri is again a professional and is asking us how to deal with ADHD kids who do not agree with us while doing work and do not follow rules. They become hyper and do not respond to words if even a little bit of anger is shown to them. So, what are some of the tips or tricks that can be used to modify this particular behavior?
See, the pattern that children get are somehow being formed because of the experiences they have with us. So we need to figure out what kind of experience we have given the child initially, take it from there, know what is happening, and then pick up the management strategies that could be a best fit for the child. And the management strategies are a whole lot, which you need to pick up what could be the best for the child. Because there are so many strategies, what may apply to one may not apply to the other. So that is being covered up in the subsequent session that we would be having. A lot of strategies you pick up, and when you say that the child is not listening, probably it's a pattern where a child had thrown a tantrum and it was given into. So all of it has to be looked into to figure out what exactly is happening with the child. A detailed discussion and an observation is needed here. It's not just a one liner that I could put it across that it has to be done in such a way. It's a whole lot of thing where you have to understand the child from different aspects and previous experiences.
Sure, definitely. And for that, our upcoming workshop, which is scheduled for 30th of March, could prove to be very useful, like you were already mentioning, where Shivani would be talking in much greater details about particular sets of observations for children with ADHD in different settings, be it a classroom, home, and how can you assess them. Okay, moving forward, the next question is from Athira, who is watching us live on Zoom right now, and she has sent her question via the chat box. This seems to be a current one because she says, because of the pandemic, since we have moved to the digital mediums, there has been a significant increase in the exposure to screen phones or all types of different screens. There has also been an increase in TVs. So Athira wanted to understand if this increase the problems with focus, and when schools do reopen, would their studies worsen because of this time period and lack of focus that might have been caused because of this period?
Yes, I really wanted to address this. I also saw it on the chat box. It was a very thoughtful question, and it needs to be known that the content, the visual content, definitely impacts every child's attention. The more they are exposed to the digital content, it is as per research. The more exposure to visual digital content, the lesser the attention span. So nowadays, because of the pandemic, unfortunately, it is happening that there's a lot of media usage. There's a lot of people are on the digital media where they have TVs, they have access to phones now, all of it. But you would see that they can sit on the computer screen for 3 to 4 hours, but without moving. But the moment they are out of the screen, 10 minutes sitting still is a problem. That is a fact. If you see children, they won't move, they won't fidget when they're in front of a TV because it's a constant moving thing. The media, the visuals are constantly changing. So that is gluing and keeping the person in front of the screen. But the moment you move that away or move the child into a physical environment where there's no constant movement of color or media or anything, they are not able to sit still and their focus is actually very much affected because of the screen time. We are all helpless, but what I tell my parents to do is see, because the schools have shifted, it is an active screen time they are engaging in, they are learning knowledge. But the passive screen time, on the other hand, where they are playing games or where they are engaging in other things which are not useful, that needs to be cut down because the moment they shift to the physical school, it is going to be a very, very difficult thing. So our monitoring is very, very important and reducing the usage of it needs to be worked upon because yes, this is hampering their attention. This is making children more restless. This is making children more impulsive. So if you notice your own children, you would see the change that is happening because they're not able to sit still without anything. And even if they are on the system listening to the teacher, they have the other tabs open where they are playing games, where they are chatting with their friends. There's constant movement happening. Same way they expect it in the physical world. So yes, it is
Right.
not a good sign.
That's Definitely, that's quite an interesting piece of information that you have shared right now with the professionals and also the parents. I hope they learn from this piece of advice that you have shared and implement it accordingly. More screen time could be disadvantages in certain
Absolutely.
ways. So, especially for children with ADHD. Moving on to the next question. This is again from Smita. Smita is watching us live on Zoom again. You were talking about the buddy system to be followed in classrooms to help children with ADHD better. Smita has a query related to that particular advice from you. She is asking if buddying system can be followed or implemented between children with LD and ADHD, and if it is implemented, will that help? And also, she has a follow up question saying that nowadays the school rules have become strict, and for the purpose of channelizing energy, if you do ask a child with ADHD to rub the board or things like that, the school rules won't permit. So, what would
Okay.
be your advice in this case scenario?
I appreciate that coming up because I myself consult for three schools year back. The first question that you had about the buddy system, the advice or suggestion I could give is an ADHD child to be, tied up as a buddy with a completely other child who has no difficulties, where the child is faster, is able to complete the work on time, so he or she could help the child who is having a difficulty. If an LD child is there with an ADHD child, both of their needs are very different, so they would not be of any benefit to each other. So they need to be paired with two different individuals who complete their work on time, who are on par with the class, to help support the needs of the ones who are in need. So pairing an ADHD child and an LD child is not a wise decision to do. It's better to pair them with the age level, age appropriate children in the classroom who are willing to help. See, when you ask as a teacher, yes, would you like to help your friends? They'll be all coming around. So you can give them turn by turn and also tell them that it is not to put anybody down. You are helping your friends to come up. You're doing a good job. You're there to support your friend. That way, with positive motivation, these children could be linked and have a buddy system, but with two different individuals, not children who are facing challenges already. That's the first part. Coming to the second part, yes, there have been changes. There has been the POSCO Act that is coming. That was a simple example, but with the permission, you could have them made the monitors instead. If the row is talking, you could be like, I want you to move around and see if everybody is doing the work or no. Usually, children with ADHD are the ones who are having average or above average intelligence. So the performance aspect on their exams and all is usually not affected. It's just that they need extra support to be on task. So you could tell them that yes, you could take a physical break, check around if everybody is doing, come back and do your work faster. Since you have taken a break, maybe you might get slower, do it. You come up with your own strategies. That was just an example. Sometimes you're not being harsh to the child if the school permits. Some people take it in a wrong way that yes, we are making the child work, but here it is a need of the child. So you come up by making them the monitor, or distributing of books, or collecting exam papers, anything, any little thing that you feel. Sometimes I also give them the round of the playground. So they are assisted by an ayah or somebody, that okay, let him have one round of the playground and come. When the child is actually not able to control impulses, instead of creating havoc in the classroom, it's better to help the child release the energy that is stuck up inside. So once the child has released it, he comes back better to the classroom to focus better. So this has been my view when I work with children with ADHD. So you come up with your own strategies. There's no fixed rule that only this has to be done. So pick up what suits your environment. Give them small breaks in between is what is the underlying line. Yeah.
Right. Hope that answers your question in detail, Smita, and you would be able to help the children in your classroom better. Shivani had small, tiny request if you could stop sharing your screen so that we
Yeah.
could interact better and there are less distractions on the
Sure.
screen. Like we
Yeah.
were talking for children with ADHD, also for the caregivers of children with ADHD. Let's keep the
True.
distractions to a minimum. The next one is from Meera. You were talking about some of the negative behaviors which should be acceptable if the behavior is not disruptive. So, Meera is asking us if you have any particular examples of such behaviors which is
Yeah.
negative but is not disruptive. And if you could state that, that would help Meera a lot.
Yes. See, all of us come across different experiences in life. So when that happens, like I would share my personal experience when I was dealing with an ADHD child. If I have to say that the child, if it's a negative thing, it needs to be ignored. What could be done is when the teacher was sitting in the classroom, the teacher asked everybody to read the lesson, a revision was going on. But the child who's an ADHD can't sit still, definitely needs to move around. The child just moved behind to take or turn and see what is happening. Though that's a disruption in the classroom, you could have politely been like, or ignored. But what exactly had happened at point of time was that the teacher fumed that I've been telling you, you've not been following. So when we are with ADHD children, it is important that we have to remain calm and patient to bring them back to focus, because they already are facing challenges themselves. Even if they want to control, they are unable to. So these little things, which are not a major disruption, can be done. If the child is in the fight or picking up fights or troubling, talking loudly, yes, that at that time it needs to be addressed immediately. But there are certain times when we need to let go and be like, okay, the class is expected to do so and so work rather than pointing out on a particular child. So this is just an example where certain small things could be omitted to make the child feel that, okay, I'm not always pinpointed.
Sure. Hope that answers your question. Sorry, I'm quickly rushing up with the questions because we
That's
have received quite a lot of them and we are running short of time. So the next one is from Aarti. Aarti is saying that her son is 7 years old. The son is hyperactive and is doing self-talk a little too much. Aarti says this mind is sharp, but because of his self-talk habit, he could not concentrate on his studies. This is Aarti's observation or assumption. So if you
okay.
could help Aarti with this particular situation.
Arti, this is a very short, brief thing that I have got to know that there is self talk. There could be much more and other things that could be affecting the child. We need to figure out first, is your child actually diagnosed with ADHD, or is it because people around tell that your child is hyperactive? That is the first thing. Second, self talk may be or may not be because of ADHD. So it needs a complete professional evaluation to figure out why self talk is happening. It could also be sorted through personal counseling sessions as to if the child is not having somebody to listen to. All these factors have to be looked into. So currently, to give you a detailed answer is not possible, but I would suggest you to seek professional help to work out the self-talk the child is facing.
Sure. So do seek a professional advice, Aarti. It would be better if you could, share many more details with the professional, and then they would be able to help you better. The next one is from Huda Ali. Huda is asking, every time I ask my child, the child is 10 years old, to do his homework, there is a lot of resistance I need to put up with. So how can I improve this particular behavior of the child without giving material benefits every time, or in our world we may call it as some of the reinforcements. So how, what would be your advice to Huda, Shivani?
See, reinforcements are of different kinds, but when we get back and see in the past, how have we got into that reinforcement is we only start with the material benefits. So that's how it becomes a pattern in the child. The child knows if I don't do it, my parent would say that, okay, you do this, I'll get you that toy. So it's a correlation that is being developed. So that is something that needs to be broken down. The firmness in your instructions are very, very important as a parent. Don't let the child get into a pattern that if I throw a tantrum, I would be getting this. So if I'm not getting, I'm sure a double tantrum. Then my parent would give me. So the intensity of tantrum keeps increasing and you keep giving into when the intensity increases. So now, since we have reached a point where that intensity has already increased, you need to cut down and be like, you do 3 times, then I would give you that material benefit. Slowly reduce the intensity of when are you providing the material benefit. Immediately, if you withdraw, there will be no effect. There's only going to be a negative impact, I could say. Your bond with the child would be affected. So take it slowly, step by step, by reducing when you are giving the material thing, and try to remove the materialistic aspect. Always engage into giving your child verbal appreciation. That is what is extremely important. Or you have the stars, stickers, something like this, which are very easy, handy, which are not harmful in the long run as well. So try breaking that pattern, reducing the intensity, that 3 times you do the homework, only then would you get it. Earlier it was you do once, I give you that material benefit. So, or you could pick up a favorite thing, that if a child wants to watch the TV, it is a step by step process. It won't happen overnight. It's not that I tell today, you apply and you would get the result, but you need to be consistent and firm in that. In spite of your child throwing a tantrum, you need to be able to hold on to it, that no, I would not give in for the benefit of your child. That is extremely important. So you be like, okay, today, if you would like to watch the TV, 15 minutes you do your homework, watch the TV, again come back and do your work. So it's a win win for both. So it is to be figured out as a parent what suits best for your child and take it up ahead. But firmness and consistency go a long way for ADHD children.
Definitely. And like you were already saying that every child is different. Most of the experts we have in our webinars and workshops say every child is different. So you need to figure out with a method of trial and error what will work best for your child. But firmness and consistency can go a long way in this direction. The next question that we have is from Gulshan. Gulshan is a special educator and wanted to understand the role of special educator in schools in much greater detail. What particularly he wanted to understand was how to diagnose child with special needs or especially child with ADHD in a mainstream school. And once you have identified them, not probably diagnosed them, then how a special educator can handle such situations better.
Right. So a special educator plays a very important role because you again work one on one. One on one is very important for these children to shift again into a group setting. So for diagnosis, we have various checklists, we have various rating scales and testing tools that are standardized. Once you understand how that tool works, you could diagnose the child whether the child is having ADHD or not. That way, once you confirm the child is having an ADHD, there are a lot of management strategies that you could do. Diet plays a very important role, how the parenting style or parental environment is. All that has to be looked into. And also, in since you're working in a school, you would know the pattern of the child in the school. What is being a triggering point? What are the points or what are the situations in which the child is not able to control impulses? So you can work on those, you can work on their attention, you can work on the cognitive abilities of the child, like sitting tolerance as well. So a whole lot of things through the assessment. You could also figure out whether it's which kind of a type of ADHD. So once you know the type of ADHD, it becomes easier for you to move ahead. And the age,
Sure.
one of, yeah, so the age factor is also there. Usually it is to be done from 6 years and above. That is very important. So all children are in their growing age, all of them have a lot of energy in them, agreed. But 6 to 7 years of age is where a formal diagnosis can be made.
Sure. That's quite helpful, I hope, for Gulshan and all the other special educators and professionals who are attending this session. Since we are running short of time, I will quickly take two more questions before I call today's session an end. So the next one is from S. Subhashine. You have already been talking about sitting tolerance. Subhashine wanted to understand if you could advise some of the ways or strategies that could be followed to improve the sitting tolerance and the focus of children with ADHD inside a mainstream classroom.
Okay, so inside a mainstream classroom, to improve their sitting tolerance, first is away from distractions. A very, very important thing. The seating arrangement in the classroom plays a very, very important role. That needs to be looked upon. Second, once you're working with an ADHD child, as a educator, when you're working or as a therapist, you work one-on-one. So you develop sitting tolerance on a one-on-one basis and then put them into the group setting, because if you try building the sitting tolerance in a group setting, it gets very, very difficult. So one on one, you can do mazes, you could do timeout activities. Probably today the child is sitting with you for only 2 minutes 30 seconds. Do the same for a period of time, like at least 2 weeks. The activities are changing, but you are doing similar kinds of activities to see how much sitting tolerance the child is having. But be consistent in your practice, and that's how the sitting tolerance develops. Today I'm giving maze, tomorrow I give an timeout activity, the other day I give find out differences, and I see how much the child is able to sustain attention and sit on a particular task. So these are again the management strategies that are in detail a part of the next webinar as well.
Great. Okay, so now we have reached to the last question of today. A lot of school administrators and have also are also a part of our audience. So this one is from Tracy Yang. Tracy is asking if there are any common strategies or implementations that schools can utilize to specially help children with ADHD in terms of infrastructure or in terms of recruitment. The range of advices could vary.
Yeah, so basically, as a school manager, there can be teacher awareness workshops. There could be a resource room for these children where there are a lot of materials that help them to develop their abilities that are lacking. There are also, the communication system that you're building with the parent. Most importantly, be it whoever working with any special needs child, rapport building is the key. Probably I might have missed out earlier, but for all those who are here, the rapport building with a child is very, very important. So the moment you want to help any child, ensure that the child has a good rapport with who is working with the child, be it the teacher, be it the parent, or be it the special educator. Once you have the rapport developed, the child would be more willing to do your work that you have scheduled for the day. Or as a parent also, if your rapport is good, the rapport building is not strained, the child would more give in to what you want rather than it being a more of a strained relationship. So as a school, if as an administrator you would want to take care your teacher awareness programs, where then the resource rooms are set up, your communication system work wonders, and classroom accommodation support system also helps. So these are a few common strategies. Again, in the classroom, whatever issues are being faced, that could be dealt separately with the teacher and in accordance with the child's needs.
Thanks a lot, Shivani. Those are pretty useful advices that you have offered to our diverse range of audience, including school administrators, professionals, special educators, teachers, and also parents. Thank you so
Thank
much for such an informative session. Dear audience, if you would like to learn more from Shivani, like I could read from the chat box, it is filled with words of gratitude and positive feedback for your today's session. So if you wanted to understand more, do register for the next workshop scheduled on 30th of March by Shivani Wadhwa. She would be talking about many more practical tips and strategies for children with ADHD in different settings, be it a classroom, home, or others. You can check out the link in the chat box. And like I already mentioned, if you want to attend other sessions from the Ability series, you can also pay a small subscription fee for the Ability membership, and then you can register for all these workshops or the upcoming events or the events that have happened in the past for free. So that will bring us to the end of the session. How did you like the experience of holding this session today, Shivani? Your last parting words.
It was good. I really enjoyed. And I would say that, yes, children are special and unique in their own ways. Be there for them, listen to them. That is what is lacking in the world out there. So thank you. Have a wonderful journey out there, all of you. Thank you so much, Team Ability, for this opportunity.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Shivani. What a wonderful message that you have left us with. Be there for the children, and we could help them a lot. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. Please do share your feedback about today's session. The feedback link is also being shared in the chat box. If you share your feedback, this will help us improve the experience further for you in the upcoming sessions. So do share your honest feedback about the session, and follow and subscribe our YouTube channel and follow our Facebook page. Thank you so much for joining. See you in the next webinar. Thank you, Shivani.
Thank you so much.